what a glorious morning it is. And our coffee has now been restored this week, of course. And it's quite interesting to observe that it's actually 2 years today that we had our first COVID lockdown. So it's quite remarkable, really. So we're looking forward to hearing words of wisdom from Rabbi Black shortly. And we're delighted to have David Stockman with us, fresh from his holidays and looking at the news. And in place of Cyril, we are delighted to have Paul Littman with us this morning, who's very kindly stepped into the spotlight, as it were. And Cyril's brothers, you probably know Cyril's brothers, Morris, is gravely ill, and we wish him a refuah shalema, and our thoughts are with Cyril at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great pleasure now to hand over to Rabbi Black.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's very nice of you, Rochelle, to introduce me. And I'm just going to mute everybody. I hope you can all hear me. You can, I hope you can. Good. Firstly, you mentioned about the coffee and the cake. Well, actually more the coffee. I just want to give you something, a little bit of something tasty and juicy to digest with your coffee and cake, as we, and just something from the parasha just to have a look through. And it was just at the end of the 8th day of the Hakamat HaMishkan, the inauguration ceremony of the Mishkan. Tragedy strikes. 2 sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies, and they offer up on their censer pans incense about which they had not been commanded. The fire descends from above, and instead of consuming the incense offering, this is what happens on this day of celebration, the fire consumes the 2 sons of Aaron. Vayamutu lifnei Hashem, the 2 beloved sons of Aaron die before God. This day, which was supposed to be one of joy and celebration, was now marred with tragedy. Moshe offers words of consolation to Aharon. Hu asher diber Hashem lemor b'krovai ekadesh v'al panei kol ha'am ekaved. This is what God spoke about, saying that I will be sanctified through those who draw near to me, and thus I will be honored before the entire people. Moshe was saying that rather than being a punishment, their death, the 2 sons of Aaron, was a way by which God was sanctified through their deeds. Their actions caused a Kiddush Hashem. What was the reaction of Aaron? Vayidom Aharon, this is what the Torah says, and Aaron was silent. My friends, I do not want to get into the nitty-gritty question of why the 2 sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, deserve to die at this point. I think I'll leave that to a drasha on Shabbat. But let it suffice it to say that our Chachamim give at least 14 different reasons to what they did wrong. What I want to emphasize here is the response of Aaron coming face to face with this personal tragedy with private grief. Aaron was silent. Note that it was after he had received the words of comfort from Moshe. However, according to Safona, before Aaron had received consolation from Moshe, he was silently weeping. It was only after this that he became silent. Notice also the word used here is not Vayishtok Aharon, and Aaron was quiet, but Vayidom. Aaron was silent. In the words of one commentator, if the word Vayishtok was employed, that implies that he was quiet on the outside for appearances, but on the inside he was truly hurting and upset. However, Vayidom, and he was silent, is much stronger. It denotes that Aharon no longer had a question. He was struck dumb by the shock of it all, but was consoled by the words of Moshe and became one with God's decision. Faced by the overwhelming intensity of the loss of his 2 beloved sons, nevertheless, Vayidom Aharon, and Aaron was silent. In other words, he accepted the decision of Hashem unquestionably. This is Hashem's decree. Who are we to question? There is a celebrated story of Rabbi Meir in the Talmud, Brachot, whose two sons died mysteriously from a disease on Shabbat afternoon. Whilst he was out studying in the yeshiva, he comes home and his wife, Bruria, was agonizing. How do I break this terrible news to my dear husband, Meir? And especially, she did not want to bring him to experience any grief on the Shabbat day. Instead, she said the following: my darling Reb Meir, if a person has taken on loan two precious jewels and now it's time to give them back to their rightful owner, what should one do? Rabbi Meir answered, of course, you should give them back. Bruria said to Rabbi Meir, well, Hashem has given us our two sons on loan, these two precious jewels, and now it's time to give them back. Rabbi Meir, understanding Bruria, said to her, you have comforted me, you have comforted me. But is there an occasion when we ought to question Hashem's actions? Or is this looked on as a weakness in emunah, in our faith? I think immediately of Avraham Avinu, who when told by God of his plan to destroy the 5 cities of Sodom, he starts to bargain and question Hashem. And he says, Hashofet kol haaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat. Should not the judge of all the world do justice? Olay yimotzun shama chamishim tzadikim b'toch ha'ir. Perhaps you will find in the city a few righteous people. And then I think of Moshe Rabbeinu, nobody greater than him, was told by Hashem to go to Pharaoh and tell him to let the children of Israel go. Instead of making things easier for Israel, it made things worse, and the Pharaoh tightened the quota on Israel. The children of Israel cry to Hashem, and Hashem goes to Hashem and tells him, Lama hare'ota la'ama zeh, lama lo hitzalta et amerecha. Why have you, Hashem, dealt so badly to this people? Why have you not saved your people? What a question, and what chutzpah. On the one hand, we have an Aaron who unquestionably accepts Hashem's justice. His own sons lie dead in front of him, yet he is silent. On the other hand, we have a Moshe and the Avraham who question, cajole, and challenge God in the face of adversity. In the words of my teacher, a person who has faith asks the questions. Which way is the correct one? Which one should we choose in our communication with God? Have a good morning. Over to you, Rochelle.
Yes, thank you very much, Rabbi, for your thoughts. And there's something that we need to think about this week, actually. Thank you very much. Now, delighted to pass over to David.
Fine. Good morning, everybody. I was going to say that the news from Ukraine is very unpleasant, which it still is. And I would concentrate on other matters which happened last week. But it appears from yesterday that Ukraine has fought back and retaken some strategic areas. But we await Russia's response, and things are still very, very terrible there. So going on to other, a little more lighter matters. Well, some of them are anyway. On Thursday, there was good news when the Iranians released Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe after 6 years imprisonment. But the pity was that the UK had to pay what was effectively a ransom demand of 393 million. And on that day, there was also an article which suggested that the dodo, extinct for over 400 years, may be able to be recreated using DNA found in Denmark. The phrase as dead as a, etc., will have to be re-engineered to something else. And also on Thursday, P&O Ferries, owned effectively by the ruler of Dubai, sacked 800 members of staff and caused an uproar from the unions and the government. Industry Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng asked them why they thought they were exempt from UK employment law and told them what they had done was illegal. They've since said that this is not so and have put several hundred million actually into a pot to be paid to those ex-workers. And then on Thursday, bank rate rose 0.25% to 0.75. So bad news for those with mortgages and probably not good news for those with savings because the banks don't seem to want to put them up anyway. On Friday, a trans swimmer won her race in the US College Championships, but stood alone on the podium as those who came second, third and fourth were photographed together on the third place plinth at the other end of the podium with a large space between them and the winner. So obviously they object to what happened. Peter Bowles, the actor famous for appearing with Penelope Keith in To the Manor Born, died aged 85. I won't say any more about that. And the question is, what does a Prime Minister do when he retires? Obviously, he becomes an HGV driver. David Cameron went to Poland with a truck of supplies for Ukrainian refugees. He was accompanied by 2 others who mysteriously were absent during the photo shoot. Over the weekend, it was announced that NASA is reviving its space program and will be going back to the moon. The mission will be known as Artemis, who was the Greek goddess of the moon. It is planned that Artemis 3 will go to the moon in 2025. And the Apollo program actually took 11 missions to get there. So this is going to get there quicker, apparently. We'll wait and see on that. And a poll published in the USA found that 52% of Democrats would flee the USA if it was invaded. 25% of Republicans would run too. Of course, this is just a poll and reality may get a different result. Shell has announced that it will revive plans to develop a huge North Sea gas field to help cut reliance on foreign imports. But this requires government permission and clearance. So whether it will happen depends on how much they chase this 2050 zero target. Italy has been urged to seize Putin's super yacht, which is undergoing repairs in a dock in Western Italy. We'll wait and see what happens with that as well. In the arts world, it was heartening to read that a charity gala entitled Dance for Ukraine in aid of Ukraine's humanitarian appeal took place at the London Coliseum, in which, amongst other nationalities, Russian and Ukrainian performers took part together. All performers donated their services, as did the English National Orchestra. The 2,359-seat theatre was provided at no charge. COVID cases are rising in the UK, and the government has announced that it will be starting 4th jabs for those over 75 and the clinically vulnerable. But there won't be any more free tests in future. This brings into question whether we'll get many more results. If the tests are not free, people probably won't bother. But we do know that this government anyway will not bring in another lockdown. This afternoon, we'll hear whether Rishi Sunak thinks there are any possibilities to reduce taxes. It is rumoured that there will be a 5% cut in fuel duty. He can well afford this, as the price increases in the pumps have brought in more than 7% extra VAT. He appears to be holding firm on the NIC rise, which keeps being referred to as 1.25%, but in reality is 2.5%, as the employee and the employer will both have to pay it. In sport matters, England were hammered 25-13 by France in the Rugby Union Six Nations. The test match between England and the West Indies petered out to another boring draw. We have the third to look forward to soon. The first Grand Prix of the year took place in Abu Dhabi with a win for Ferrari driver Charles Leclerc. Red Bull, the pre-race favourites, had a disaster when both cars failed to finish. Lewis Hamilton finished third, much to his surprise, with fellow Briton George Russell fourth in his first drive as a Mercedes works driver. In football, the FA Cup semi-finalists are Crystal Palace, Manchester City, Liverpool and Chelsea. No surprise with the last three there. They're streets ahead of anybody else. And finally, in a slight echo of what Lee said last week, Spurs managed 2 wins in a row for the first time since December to go 5th. They may not need to finish in the top 4 for Champions League football next year. If Liverpool or Chelsea or Manchester City win the Champions League, then 5th place will be good enough to qualify, but there's still a long way to go. And that's all for me. Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed, David.
Can I just ask David a question?
Yeah, go on.
Go ahead.
Was it really a ransom that the government paid to get Nazanin back, or was it money we really owed to the Iranians? For the,
well, it was released. Yes, you're right in a way. It was release of monies that we owed them, but it was effectively a ransom because they demanded that money before they would release her, even though it was their money in the first place. But then you see sanctions. The whole idea of sanctions is to deny these rogue states money so that they can, create weapons. So we were holding on to it under sanctions, and now we've given it back, so our sanctions are less.
It probably means some more rockets fired at Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what they'll do with the money. We know that.
Exactly. They call that for peaceful purposes.
Yeah. Well, what's peaceful for them is not peaceful for anybody else. Okay.
Yeah.
Could I ask David a question quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, something far more important, David.
Yeah.
How can Spurs qualify for the Champions League, not finishing fourth? Could you explain that again? I didn't catch it.
Yeah, if one of the teams above them wins the Champions League, they get an automatic entry, and you get 4 other entries.
So it goes down a place.
So it'll go down a place to 5th. At the moment, Arsenal are in the box seat. We all know that. I know you're an Arsenal man.
Well,
and they probably deserve to be there, but we still hope we'll get a win over them when they come to us. We'll still be hard. Okay.
It would be nice if two London clubs could be in. That would be good.
Yeah, well, there would be 2 because Chelsea would be one of them anyway. There could be 3 though.
What?
Thank you, David.
Is that Tottenham and Watford?
Yeah, thank you, Lee.
Tottenham, Chelsea, and Arsenal. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
First, David.
A session on football, I think, as well. Thank you so much, David.
Okay.
Your choice of news items bring to our attention, which is quite comprehensive and diverse. And I'm sure our discussions about football will go on afterwards.
Probably.
All to play for, as they say.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, it's a very great pleasure to welcome Paul Littman. Now, Paul, you grew up in Neasden, I believe. Is that right?
Was born in Neasden.
Yes.
And I stayed there till I was about 10, and then we moved to Brunsbury Park.
Yes. And you were the middle child, I understand. Is that right? You had
Middle child.
an older brother and a younger sister as well. And did you go to school in Wilston then?
No. I went to school, first to a school called Beaconsfield, which was a Jewish school, Frant in Sussex. And then I went to a school called Hazelwood Preparatory School, which is, it was in those days deep countryside in Oxford, Surrey. And then after that, I went to Epsom College.
I see, yeah. And was there a particular choice for your parents sending you to the school, the prep school and boarding school?
Well, Beaconsfield was a Jewish school, and there were various parents there that my parents knew.
Yes.
And when the school went bankrupt in '53, some of the parents' children decided we should go to Oxford as a boarding school, because that's what you did in that kind of society. My parents lived
That's
in.
right, yes, absolutely.
And then when I went to Epsom, I was advised to go there by other people who followed us through to Oxford.
Yes. Yeah. How did you fare at boarding school? Did you?
I didn't really enjoy it.
No.
I didn't send my children to boarding school.
No.
I could probably have afforded it these days.
Yeah.
It's very, very expensive. My school fees were £500 a term at Epsom, and now they're about £7,000 or £8,000 a term. It's a lot of money.
At least, yeah. And did you have a good camaraderie with your fellow pupils at the schools, or?
Not greatly. I've only got one friend. Funnily enough, that one friend was at Hazelwood in Oxford, and then went to Epsom with me, but we weren't in the same house.
Oh, I see.
But we're still friends 50 years later.
Oh, so it's good having support there then.
Well, it was a little bit of support, but different houses were like being really in different schools.
Yes.
There was no Yiddishkeit in the school. We used to have a man come down every Sunday morning while everybody else was in their church and we used to have religious education, which I must say that none of us seem to take on board very well.
It's the way it's taught, and the yeah. So it was interesting, yeah. And did you sort of take up various hobbies when you were at school because you had time to do, more time to do things there?
Not particularly.
No.
Boarding school is very regimented and very busy.
Is it? Yeah.
It's all regimented. You had 2 lessons in the morning, then you had a break, which usually did PE. Then you had 2 more lessons, you had lunch, then you had sports, then you had 2 lessons in the evening, you had supper, and then you had prep, you had homework.
Mm.
So there wasn't really much time.
Yeah. So. But you had an interest in sport.
You mean you're referring to the boxing?
That's right, yes.
Well, everybody boxed in the school. And I remember this particular fight with a boy who was much older than me. And he was much bigger. And we came into the ring. I didn't know I'd been put in the ring with him, but he came into the ring, gave me one clout and knocked me out of the ring.
Oh, no.
And then I came back and I was very wary of his right arm, and I was very small and weedy, and I just tapped him all the time, driving him mad, tap, 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 tap. Anyway, so I won the match outright. Oh. And then it was about 40 years later, I found out that the teacher, Vernon Scanlon, who is a well-known poet today, was talking on the radio about the school. And he actually mentioned me by name, and he said,
"Oh, wow!"
Yeah, he said there's a rabbinical-looking boy there. I didn't even have a beard then, so he's called me a rabbinical little boy, Littman. He said a natural-born boxer.
Oh, well.
And of course, I didn't know then at the time.
No.
And he said the boy he put me in the ring with was the school bully.
Oh.
He knew I would win. And I never went on with it further than that. I got a cup and everything, and then I forgot all about it till I heard it on the radio.
Oh, how amazing! Quite remarkable, actually. Yes. So, when you were at school, did you have a sort of idea of what we wanted to do professionally? Was that in the back of your mind, or were you just exploring different things?
Epsom College was endowed by a number of medical foundations.
Yeah.
And nearly most of the boys, not all the boys, but most of the boys usually had some medical, their parents were in the medical profession.
Mm.
And so with that kind of bent, and as I went down with physics and chemistry A-level, and I wanted to go into business, pharmacy seemed to be the way to go.
Mm. And were you sort of guided at school about, the options for doing that? And...
Oh, no, they didn't think pharmacy was good at all. No, yeah. The trouble with they're only interested in the elite. Either you were very, very bright or you were very good at sport. And if you weren't either of those 2 things,
just ignored, yeah.
They were ignored, yes.
Yeah, I understand, yes. So how did you explore which sort of school of pharmacy to attend? Was there any particular reason?
I just explored them all, and I just went to the one that would accept me.
Yeah. So
up in Chelsea School of Pharmacy.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we took our exams at the London School of Pharmacy, which was in Brunswick Square.
Oh, yes.
And I remember saying to myself when I was taking the exams, I'm never, ever going to come back to this area again. And eventually I bought the shop.
Yes.
Get to it.
I think that's quite funny. Yes. And how were your fellow students at Chelsea? It must have been a very, nice area to, to hang out in, as it were.
They were 40% of them were Jewish from northwest London. quite remarkable. Now I
Yeah.
should think if there's one child or one person there, it's a big number.
Yeah.
Now it's
Also,
under Mary's auspices of St. Mary's.
yeah, did they have a Jewish society there or anything like
Yeah, it wasn't student union, yeah.
Yes.
Wasn't
So
very busy. Pharmacy took up a lot of time.
I can understand that.
You know, we used to have a practical every morning, which used to last 4 or 5 hours and a couple of lectures in the afternoon. It was
Yes.
a very full-on day. Not like
Yeah.
my granddaughter, who seems to studying drama, seems to have 2 lectures a week. And that's
Yeah, I know. Yes, some are luckier than others, aren't they? Yes. So how long is the course actually, the pharmacy course? Is it
Pharmacy course in those days was 3 years plus 1 as a pre-registration student.
Yes.
But now it's a 4-year course.
I thought so, yes.
And it's now goes straight to a master's degree.
All right. So where did you then do your pre-registration? Did you have a choice of where to go?
Pre-registration along the road,
Yes.
King's Road, the other end, just opposite, not John Barnes, the John Lewis shop in Sloane Square.
Oh, yes.
Peter Jones.
Peter Jones, that's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. How could I forget that?
No, I know. Oh, and how did you find that? Was that
well, I
enjoyable?
was under a pharmacist called Martin Morris, who was not Jewish, but had many, many Jewish friends.
Yes.
Which he met when he was at college, because, as I said, in those days, it was about 40% Jewish boys.
Yes.
And that was quite fun. I was just thinking yesterday, people would talk about selling things, and I was in the pharmacy, which was, being Kingsbury, we used to sell expensive wines and champagne.
Oh, really? My goodness.
I don't understand.
It's good for your health, is it?
And I remember that Longcombe Cosmetics didn't have English on the side, they only had French.
Oh.
And I was the only person who had schoolboy French that could read what it was. You know.
Oh, that's impressive.
Now it's a multinational firm, but hardly anybody had ever heard of it, but they had their agency. And I remember one time a lady came in about Christmas time, and she looked around the store and she says, "Oh, I do like these Christmas decorations." So I wrapped them all up and sold them to her. And then when the manager, the area manager, came into the store, he said, "Where's all the Christmas decorations?" And they said, "Paul sold them." He says, "What did you sell them for?" So I gave him a number. He says, "Okay, I'll send some more."
You're obviously a very good salesman then.
No, just have to strike while the iron's hot.
Yes, hot. Yeah. Very good. Now, so how long were you actually there for?
1 year, 1 year pre-registration.
Just 1 year, yes.
And then I took a job as a manager at a company called John Keel in Maida Vale.
Yes.
And it was really, that was 1967, 68.
Yes.
It was really a boom time for pharmacy because the supermarkets hadn't got going then.
Yes.
And people suddenly started having, you never had it so good. Business really boomed. We did very well.
Oh.
And then a year later, I bought my own shop in Fairfax Road, which was a very interesting business.
Yeah. And what prompted you then to buy the pharmacy in that particular area? Did you think?
Well, it came up for sale.
It
was owned by a man called John Elkin, who couldn't seem to run it. But when we went down into the cellar, we saw that it was full of whiskey bottles and other bottles of alcoholic, poor man. So he went broke, and the shop was for sale for a very cheap price.
Oh, really? Yes.
So my father put up the money, which was very small, about £1,000, I suppose, in today's time, about £20,000. And we just went from there.
Mm. And you were working on your own, or did you have any other staff with you?
I had an assistant. Yes, we hired an assistant, and it took some time for the business to get going because being an alcoholic, he let the business really run down.
Oh, yes.
And therefore the goodwill was not there.
Yeah.
So we worked it up, and then a few years later we bought the shop in Brunswick Centre, which was a totally different business.
Yeah. So I understand that 1968 was a particular, lots of things happened. Yeah.
Well, we got married, and my father died. And,
yes.
It was a busy year, 68.
Yeah, but it was because you used to do some voluntary work. Was it at Nightingale?
Oh, very little.
Oh, yes.
Just went there because the group of us went down there occasionally.
Yes.
I met Judith, obviously.
Oh, that was very nice. Yeah.
In the book.
Yes. So the business then became very successful, and then
I wouldn't say it was very successful.
Oh, yeah.
But we made a living. And then, of course, I didn't put in my article there, the exciting bit was next door to the shop in Brunswick Centre was a brothel.
Oh.
And, we never saw anybody go in or out. But eventually, after several years, the landlord managed to say that they'd broken the covenant of their leases and offered it to me.
Yeah.
And while he was offering he phoned me up and said, my mother's shouting at the other end of the shop, said, don't offer him anything for the goodwill.
I like that.
So we went, so the shop doubled in size and it became much more profitable.
Yes. So it was really good to have your mother helping.
My mother was a wonderful sales lady.
Was she? Yeah.
She learnt her salesmanship in a kitchen shop owned by my uncle in Brewer Street, which sold, it wasn't a kitchen shop first, it was cosmetics and jewelry. And she learnt it there when she was young, and she was fantastic in the shop.
Mm-hmm.
She was terrific. She could spot a shoplifter as soon as he walked in the door.
Yeah.
She worked there. She worked with me till she was 80.
Oh, fantastic, really. Yeah. Very inspiring, I must say.
Yeah, she was good, really fantastic.
Mm. And were you living above the shop there?
No. We lived in, when Judith and I got married, we moved to West End Lane.
No, yeah.
In one of the flats along there. And of course, it was a one bedroom, actually it was 2 bedroom flats, I think we call it today. Yeah. And it probably is worth more than my house today.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
And then when Judith got pregnant, we decided we had to move. We couldn't stay there.
Yes.
And we found this place in Preston Road that nobody ever heard of.
Yes, I was about to say, how did you come up to Preston Road?
It was so far away, I couldn't believe how far away it was. but because I had the shop at that time in Swiss Cottage,
yes,
I wanted to be on the tube line just in case they couldn't use the car.
Yes, that was very convenient, yeah.
So we went along the tube lines and found Preston Road.
Mm. But I understand you had some really well-known customers there that used to visit you?
In Swiss Cottage, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Quite a lot. But they came in and they were transient.
Transient, yeah. Oh. And then that's where your connection, when you moved to Preston Road, your connection with the shul then?
Well, when it was hard to put them down for the children who needed Hebrew classes, we joined the shul, and we live midway between Wembley and Preston Road.
Yes.
Kenton.
Yes.
And but Eddie Jackson was at Kenton, who taught Judith when she was a young girl.
Oh, I see.
At Dennington Park Road.
Yes.
So it was obviously we had to join
Kenton,
which was obviously a better choice.
Yes.
Much better choice.
Yeah. And of course, you made many friends there because of the children being at Hayden, and you then became active.
Well, most of our friends are.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all gone to other places.
Yes.
Like Bushy, as I always say, most of the community end up in Bushy one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Very well put, if I may say. And so how did you come then to develop your pharmacy in the Brunswick Centre in Russell Square?
Well, that was a stroke of luck. It was a new project. It was a completely new building. And so therefore there's no premium to pay.
Yes.
And I thought it would be a different type, much faster business than Fairfax Road. You wouldn't know any of the customers, you just did the job and got on with it. In Fairfax Road, you became part of the family, you know.
Yes, I understand.
And yeah, and so I went for a walkabout, and just opposite the shop was a doctor's surgery, which was a good sign.
Yes.
And the doctor was Dr. Peter Scholar, who went to Epsom the same time as me. So we knew each other before.
Yes. That was an amazing connection, yeah.
His surgery was really, really fantastically competent.
Yes.
and quick. You know, you go into your doctor's surgery today. Now you can do it on Zoom and so on, but in those days you had to order up your prescriptions.
Yes.
And if you remember, you used to have to wait. Some people waited like 6 or 7 days.
Yes, that's right.
2 or 3 days. But in Dr. Scholar's prescription, he came out. He was one of the first doctors who came out of his office and asked for the patient by name to come in with him. And also, while he came out, any prescriptions that had come through that needed signing, signed them straight away. So you only had to wait about 10 minutes to get a repeat prescription.
Oh, wonderful.
And you could, you know, he would see virtually all his patients as soon as they phoned up.
Remarkable,
really
fantastic.
Very, which was terrific for us because there's none of the arguments, has my prescription come in? No, it hasn't come in, all that.
Yes, I know.
It was always really, really professional. His staff were excellent.
Yeah.
And in fact, the pharmacy at one stage was the busiest pharmacy in central London. Busier than all the Boots, yeah, for a very short time.
Yes. And presumably you had to take on extra staff then.
I had a manager there, and we had 4 or 5 girls on the counter.
Yeah. And then eventually, I suppose you decided that you wanted to retire.
No, I got a letter from Boots saying we'd like to buy your business.
Oh, really? Oh.
And I took one look at it and said, no, we're going to have to sell the shop. They already sent us a letter with our names on it, not just, dear sirs, would you like to sell your business?
Yes.
Dear Mr. Littman, would you like to sell your business? So
they've been keeping you under observation then, is it?
Absolutely. And as soon as I met the team that wanted to buy it, the staff already knew because they knew them as regular customers.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
And then after I sold it, not at a very good price, I had to get somebody in to negotiate the price. But I went down to the nearest pharmacy and he said, oh, I'm so annoyed that you sold it, because I was in negotiation with them as well. So I made the right decision.
Oh, that was good. Yeah. But then you still kept your hand in, didn't you, as a locum, I understand?
Hated that.
Did you really?
Well, I put it in that article. As soon as I'd go in, the computer would break. Nobody ever knew the code numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Some people love it. I mean, there's certain people that locum for 30 years and love it. But I was glad when I decided that this was time to give up.
To finish off, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, you're very modest about this, but you're actually a volunteer at the Jewish Museum, and How long have you been doing that then?
About 10 years, I think.
Yeah. And you've obviously seen the museum develop and move to its present site then?
Well, no, it did move to the site in 2010.
Yeah.
The site had been there before, but the back of the museum, which now holds most of the museum, was donated by Montague Burton's son in about 2008, 2009, and then was converted.
Yes.
And it goes through. Abigail Morris had some wonderful shows there, which I'm sure most of the people here have seen.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they never made any money. So there was a bit of a problem at the museum, which I never quite found out what happened. But Abigail left, and now we have another new lady.
Yes.
Francine, and she has her own ideas. And now we've got a very interesting exhibition coming up about photography and the Holocaust. I'm not quite sure how it works out, but there's lots of video screens up there, and they're discussing whether you should put people's faces on the pictures.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I understand.
And we'll see how that works out.
Yes. So you met quite a lot of people in different and school visits, I assume, as well.
I don't take any part in the school visits.
Okay. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yes.
If it works out that way. But the museum is mainly run for school visits. I mean, they have, during term time, 2 or 3 visits a day sometimes.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps the museum alive.
Yeah, it's very important. Yeah. And obviously, presumably, people are still contributing to it as well.
Oh, yes. Anybody got anything interesting to do?
Yeah.
It's terrific. Most of it never goes on display.
Yeah, this is.
There's not enough room. If you have too much stuff on display, it just spoils the museum.
Yeah, I understand.
It's not so much of a museum as a history of Jews throughout in England.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yes. Well, thank you very much indeed, Paul. It's been very interesting to chat to you. We got some comments or questions to pose. Roy, I think you'd like to.
Yeah. Paul, I don't know why you were so reluctant to speak. You've got such an interesting story to tell.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roy.
And you've always kept it quiet about working next door to the brothel.
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't much to see. I mean, there's a brothel in Preston Road. You know, did you not know that?
Funnily enough, no.
Well, as you walk from the circle, you know, that way down Preston Road, there's a little hairdresser there. 2 half shops. Do you remember where the shop was with the health food shop?
Yes, yes.
Well, obviously it was a brothel, because what they do is they paint the shop so you can't look in. Then you never see anybody go in or out of the shop. They always go by the back. Anyway, it's been closed down now.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I saw that was the police raided it a number of months ago. Okay.
How they don't do it for being a brothel. How they do it is that they check on the girls that go in. I assume they're girls, and and
new dimension.
they see where they come from and go from, and then they say they couldn't. The wages you're paying them don't make sense, because if they're spending £50 a week on fares and you're only paying them £60 a week, it's not. You're not paying them correctly. Therefore, we're doing you for income tax fraud and for national insurance fraud. And that's how they get them.
Mm.
I mean, you know, whenever you see a dark shop like that, you know it's for nefarious reasons, for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that why they paint the windows in
not
front
always.
of a shul? Sorry. Is that why they paint the windows in front of a shul? I'm just curious, Paul, about the. I'm just curious.
We're not censoring this, by the
way. Paul, I'm just curious about the options poster behind your head.
Oh yes, sorry, yes.
Very good advertisement.
Are you going to try and sell us something now?
if you're interested in bridge, we're having the
Oh, is that what it says? I couldn't read the.
Having a bridge afternoon on June the 14th, and we're hoping to raise money for Jewish care.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's a brilliant advert, I must say.
Well, I just suddenly thought of it. I thought,
yeah,
waste it. So
terrific idea.
But I noticed it.
That's very good. Well, Resh,
Lee,
straight away.
Lee, I can't imagine a brothel having stained glass windows in the front though.
Oh, you should look at some of the Roman. You should look at some of the Roman. Should look at some of Roman Catholic properties.
Do we have any more questions or comments for Paul? No.
You said you didn't enjoy boarding school.
Yes.
Is it something that? Because I know a couple of my cousins, their children went to boarding schools and they really had an unhappy time.
Yes.
Do you think this sort of boarding school should be banned, kind of thing? Because the effect it has on the child seems to be a bad effect, from what I can see.
Well, boarding schools are totally changed now.
Okay.
Yeah.
They don't concentrate so totally on the first 15 rugger players, and they don't concentrate on the very, very brainy. They now concentrate on the middle group because they realize that's where their money and income comes from. So in fact, all schools are like that now. When I asked my grandchildren, did they enjoy school? They said it's not bad.
That's positive, isn't it?
We'll listen to get anything out of a child. What did you do today? Nothing. So they enjoy it. So I think schools are much, much better places.
Yeah, it's interesting.
One thing, when I went to, was brought up in Neasden, and then I went to boarding school at Beaconsfield, which is a Jewish school. And then I went, that school closed down. I had to go to this school, Hazelwood in Oxted. And I remember once we were eating a meal and it was white meat. And so I said to somebody, oh, what meat is this? And they said, oh, it's pork. And I laughed and nobody eats pork. I said, I couldn't work that out at all. I lived in such a Jewish society. It took a long time to realize that people weren't Jewish.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. There's a different kind of perspective because I know my father Shalom went to boarding school in Brighton. It was a Jewish boarding school and it was quite harsh. Harrow House it was, yeah. But I mean, as I said, I've been playing at Harrow School. I think the boys actually really enjoy it. It's I wouldn't say it's more informal, but I think they get the best out of the pupils and there's a very good camaraderie. I mean, there must be certain.
As I said, schools have totally changed since.
Yeah.
My brother went to Harrow House.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. He was there he was older than me. He was there from, I think, age 5 to about age 14, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he left there. He went. He then went to a stage school.
Oh, did he? All right.
Yeah, Corona Academy.
Oh, correct.
Yeah. He was a contemporary of Richard O'Sullivan.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Fraser Hines. Anyway,
David,
I like that.
David, did you notice in your news thing you didn't mention about the Anne Frank book that's been pulled?
No, I didn't pick that up. I got all my news by going through the papers from the last week, and if I missed something, I missed something. I couldn't pick up everything.
This is just a story that's broken this morning. Is that the book, the recent Anne Frank book, that blames a Jew for betraying Anne Frank?
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
The book has been pulled because the details don't stand up to historic scrutiny.
Okay, that's good.
So that's good. That's a piece of news.
Yeah, that's
just,
good.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
It's actually on the BBC website, surprisingly.
All right.
Yeah.
So what was that, just this morning? Well, I did my report yesterday.
Yeah, it was this morning, yes.
Oh, was it? Okay, thank you for bringing us up to
About
date.
books. Talking about books, we've got the latest Howard Jacobson book here, which
Yes.
is one of the prizes offered for a raffle on the 14th of June, if you care to.
Okay. And don't tell me the second prize is to Howard Jacobson.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I was once mistaken. Somebody once came over to me at some do and said, Mr. Jacobson. I said, no, you got the wrong. They thought I was him, but that's another issue.
Well, yes, I can see there's some similarity there.
Well, because he's got a beard.
Yeah, I know.
He's shorter than you.
Is he?
Yeah.
Was he? Yeah.
Okay.
Nice, a short guy.
David.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
David.
Yeah.
Is that where your Emily gets her acting skills from? Your brother?
It could well be. It could well be.
That's interesting.
He was in a few shows, and of course we had a pop group, so it's her singing that gets her the part rather than her acting.
Yeah. It's in the family.
It's in the family, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, my mother was a great actress, but not on the stage.
Oh dear. I see.
What's that supposed to mean?
Yeah, I think
I won't
it's an underlying.
What is that supposed to mean?